Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live. Hi, good evening. Welcome back again. My name is Jay. I am the host of the show this evening. I am excited to welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live, Dawn Gallagher. Welcome to the show, Dawn.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited and honored to be here tonight.
Beautiful, beautiful. We also have in the studio Jeff Fasano coming in from Nashville, Tennessee, the home of music these days. And of course, we have Josh Richard. Welcome back to North America, coming in from Southern California in a temporary studio, but welcome home, Josh, and good to see you. And of course, we have Evis Love, Heath, the man of the land from down under. He calls Australia home. Welcome to the show, men and lady.
So good to be here.
And my sister. Another week gone in the East. Can you believe it?
Wow, it's Good
That's
Friday.
right.
It's Good Friday tonight, guys. So
It is great Friday.
yeah, great.
It's always good when it's Friday.
Yeah.
That means that we're doing Real Men, Real Talk Live.
There you go.
Well,
as we are waiting for our viewers to jump on with us, I'd like to welcome our viewers and listeners. Welcome to the show. If you should hear something that you like or love, with love, we invite you to tap your love button on your monitor so that you light us up. When we get lit up, we have more to share and we show up. So please, if you have any comments or questions, drop it in the comments. We'll do our best to acknowledge any questions that may come through the stream, and as well as acknowledge some comments that I'm able to post up on the monitor. And so with that, another week has passed, as Ev and Jeff have said, and once a month we invite female special guests into the studio to share a space with us and to bring her perspective in topics that are relevant. And so as we jump in tonight's topic is about equality in relationships and the rise of the feminine. And this is one of those topics that leaves a lot of room for interpretation. So here's some of the subtopics that we're going to jump into tonight. One is there equality in your relationship? What role does self-worth and self-value play in our relationships? Is your relationship impacted by your personal financial belief system? And what role does finances play between men and women in a relationship? Is your relationship agreement based on a traditional gender roles? How does masculinity play a role in equality? And is it working for you? And last but not least, if it's not, how can you change the agreement between man and woman? And how has money substituted for abundance? And what role does the energy of love bring to a healthy relationship versus the financial agreement? And lastly, how does the rise of the feminine impact the woman's role in a relationship? And so, Dawn, we met this week in our production meeting on Tuesday. And of course, we open it up to our guests to kind of share a little bit about, well, what is the topic that they want to bring forward. Before we go there, I'd like to invite you just to share with our viewers a little bit about your bio. Who are you, and where did you rise? Where did you come from? Just a quick, short bio about your past and your successes in life.
Really, who are you, and how did you get here?
How
did this woman? Who is what?
What? How'd you get here?
Yeah, how did you get there in the middle square?
Right?
Yeah. So let me start with my background. So I'm from Buffalo, New York. I come from a family of 10. So that's my parents, and there were 8 children. And very traditional background. My mom was an artist, but she stayed home and raised 8 children. I don't know how she did it because I have one, and I cannot believe that she raised 8 children. In fact, I'm with them tonight. She's 84 years old, and my dad is 86. So it's really a blessing to be here in Florida with them. And I left when I was 17 years old. I got discovered. It's kind of a Cinderella story. I was just walking down the street, watching a parade. I was with my brother and sister, and a photographer walked up to me and he said, "I think you could be a model." And I said, "What? What's that?" Like, I didn't even know what he was talking about. I mean, I looked at magazines, but I had never thought that I could be a model. I was bullied in school. Because I was always very tall and very lanky. So I was sort of bullied and made fun of. I was called olive oil and all these really ostrich and all these. And so I never thought I could be a model. Anyway, I said, well, what do I got to lose? I mean, here I am in flip-flops and, a little t-shirt and whatever. 6 months later, I was doing Vogue covers in Rome. I literally, my career happened so fast. In fact, I'm writing a book called From Flip-Flops to Couture because I was literally, a schoolgirl. And then next thing you know, I was doing couture in Rome, Italy. So it was really a Cinderella story. I got very, very lucky. Finished my high school, diploma and eventually went back to college. But I had a beautiful, lustrous career. I had traveled all over the world, had been to Australia many times. So big shout out to Australia, all over the world, Africa. And so I was very blessed. I really wanted to see the world. And that was one of the main reasons I got into modeling, was to travel the world. I wasn't really interested in the glitz and glam, to tell you the truth. I was more interested in culture. In fact, I wanted to be a cultural anthropologist. That was sort of my big dream and big goal. I wanted to be a Margaret Mead, but that didn't happen. But I still got to travel and I got to write about culture. So, yeah, and then I wrote 2 books. 2 New York Times best-selling books on beauty and culture, indigenous cultures from around the world and their definition of beauty, that beauty is not, on the outside, that beauty is really an inside job. And so every culture has their own definition of what is beautiful to them. So, beauty is ageless, it's timeless, it's colorless. We're like flowers in a garden. We come in all different shapes and sizes. So, and then I went on to do QVC. I was doing lots of television work, lots of commercials. And now I'm, just doing lots of TV work again. And I'm doing lots of social media. I do a lot of social media campaigns for different brands. I really love my work. Also, my big deal that I'm doing is Women Power Our Planet, which is all about learning about sustainability, that we can make money sustainably. So we don't have to destroy the planet to make money. We can actually make lots of money through sustainability practices. So we teach women finance, move your money, break up with your bank, break up with the banks that support fossil fuel, that support polluters, and move it into green banks. So that's just a little bit of my background.
Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. And now I'm here with you guys. Ready to talk. I'm ready to go deep, as Evis. Evis, please.
All right.
You're into it, sister.
We're going to go deep tonight. So,
well,
yeah.
I appreciate that, Dawn. Thank you for sharing your own bio. One of the comments that came up in the green room tonight, just before we went live, was we just barely touched on really what is the feminine divine or the feminine movement mean to you, and just from the perspective of tonight's topic and show. And so I'd like to invite you to share why you picked this topic. What relevance does equality in relationships and the rise of the feminine really mean to you in your own life today? And what is the message that you'd like us to really break down for our viewers this evening?
So the rise of the feminine, doesn't mean that we're trying to compete with men, that we are trying to be like men. I don't want to be a man. I like being a woman. But I think the rise of the feminine means that women are starting to come into their power. They're trying to say that, you know what, we have a voice, we have opinions, we're 51% of the population, we should be paid equally. I mean, I was reading a statistic, single women out of college with the same GPA make 93 cents to every man's dollar, but they're doing the same work. They have the same degree. Why is that? Like, I think we should all question that, because it doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve men. It doesn't serve women. It doesn't serve children. So I think it probably started a long time ago, when women, the traditional roles of women stayed home and took care of their kids and the man worked, but that's outdated now. And so as you go towards the future, things that are outdated, you have to kind of, rewrite, rewire, and move forward. So to me, it's like women are really, they're trying to understand and work with men to change laws, to change outdated paradigms. We want to dispel myths about, what's the traditional role of women and what's the traditional role of man. I mean, there's so many men that tell me, I would love to stay home and raise my children. And if my wife wants to go to work, that's fantastic. And that should be allowable. Women who want to stay home with their children should get paid for it. It is a job, So I think that there's, changes that are happening and are, taking place. But I do think that we need more of it, and we need to become more aware of what's going on. I think that women and especially girls don't get the education. You probably know all the statistics that, girls in countries all over the world do not get the education that boys do. So I just think that it doesn't serve humanity. And so what I'd like to talk with you guys about is how can we help each other as, very conscious adults? How do we help each other and then really move this needle forward? So I'd love to hear your opinions on where do you think this whole thing started, where women earn less than men? And then do you agree with it? Go ahead.
Wow, so much deep stuff in there, sister. And
yeah, right.
I'm just thinking about topic after topic after topic. But you hit some really, really important.
We are good for the next month.
Yeah, at least, brother, at least. I think you hit some really good ones where we could start off with and give everyone a platform where we could take off. And that is really just the history on this planet. I mean, I love words, Dawn, and I just got to look at that word, his story. It's been his story since day one. So we've got to think about his story that we've been living under for the past 100, 2, 3, 4, 5,000, who knows how many years. So his story was based on a very patriotic or patrilineal side of things, of the masculine energy. Now, we all know that as we've walked into this rise of the divine feminine, as you're talking about, you talk about, being in Indigenous cultures. My background is an original man of this land here in the land down under Australia. And our storylines, our song lines were all passed down from the matrilineal side. Yes. So it was always a beautiful thing that we always knew that it was the divine feminine that had the story that passed it down through the generations and the lines.
Yes.
Now, we always knew that connection, and, so many of us get distracted by technology, all the stuff and things outside. And we always knew, Mother Nature. It's not called Father Nature. Yeah. So when we start to understand some of these just basic, simple principles, that it's always been the divine feminine.
Yeah.
Fellas, I hate to burst your bubble, but without the divine feminine, you are nothing. You would not be here. She is the portal. So without now separating who's ruled whatever, yeah, we've come out of a dark past, man, because of that patrilineal line. I'm not going to say it too loud, but religion may have had a lot to do with it. Just a little silent whisper there. So as we've come out of that, we're starting to realize that the divine feminine rising, and all she has to do is really walk into her divine feminine, while most of us men, we have to fall to rise now. So we're starting to see, I talked about this in the video this morning, whether it was through relationships, whether it's through careers, whether it's through our health. Many men over the last 5 years that I've been helping are falling left, right, and center. And I know all of us here on the Real Men Real Talk Live, we've all had our fall, and we continually walk in our dark nights of the soul. So for us to rise now, our beautiful divine feminine have got to hold the space for us. They've got to hold that space and allow us to purge some of these deep, dark, patrilineal things that have gone on this planet through conditioning, through programming, through all of this other stuff that we didn't ask for this, but now it's for us to be able to heal through, be able to work through, and allow us to actually mold and shape a whole new world together as the one. So as Dawn is saying, we don't even have to look outside of ourselves to realize that each and all of us have the divine feminine. Each and all of us have the sacred masculine. And it's through that beautiful sacred union that we actually bring into the balance that we're all seeking. So I know we're going to be talking about some of these deep concepts, but for me, yeah, we've been living in a his story. So now it's trying to rewrite the script.
Josh.
Sorry, you just sparked something in me that it was like this aha, that like the rise of the divine feminine means the women accepting some of their masculine energy and us holding space for that. And it's so funny because in reverse, all that we've been programmed with is that we're not valuable unless we're the breadwinners and unless we're making money. And so you women supporting us with our feminine side, in that we're okay just being us as guys. And it doesn't matter what we do or what jobs we have. So it's so funny in the rise of the feminine and the sort of softening of the masculine, if we can call it that, is each of us holding space in the other's opposite.
Yeah. And
it's like this beautiful crossing of support, holding space for each other in the opposite of our gender. It's beautiful.
Because we're all male, female in one.
Totally.
You think about the egg and the sperm, two liquids that got together. I mean, it's male, female, created us. So, you know, and what Evis was saying, you know, the patriarchy that kind of, it separated us from nature. And once we started separating from nature and, we have dominion over nature. No, we're stewards of nature. We're supposed to be, protecting nature and being stewards of nature and being one with nature. And nature could teach us so much. It's so beautiful. The feminine, the birth, it's just gorgeous. And I just love that you guys are really starting to really understand what this means. It's not about him against her and it's about us coming together beautifully and working together beautifully to create this beautiful earth that we can create. I believe we live heaven on earth. It's just our minds and our subconscious believe something opposite, but this earth is beautiful and we should respect it and honor it. And dominion does not mean control. We have control over all things and we can kill and destroy and whatever and dominate. I think that was the mistake that, the patriarchy of, hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of years ago. We're stewards of this earth.
Beautiful. Jeff, you've been awfully quiet, taking this all in. And I know you've got some your own perspective. I'm going to invite you to open up and break this down for us. What are you hearing tonight in this conversation? So far, there's a lot of liquid gold that's being dropped between Dawn, Josh, and Ev. So What do you make of all this this talk that's happening right now?
Two things. The first thing is I want to move from the 3D to the 5D and look at it as energy, as pure energy, the feminine energy and the masculine energy. And we've spoken about this many times on this show, about men starting to begin to release the old definition of the masculine energy, which is aggressive.
Yeah.
And move into a definition of the energy as assertive. So I'm looking at it as strictly as energy now, not men, women. I'm talking about feminine and masculine energy. So it's about looking at the definition of both. What is the definition of the masculine energy? Now, take men out of the masculine, take women out of the feminine, because we all, as Dawn said, as Josh said, we all have both aspects of this energy within us. Through our wounding, through our conditioning, through our programming, all of that has become totally distorted through the conditioning and programming and the wounding. So if we just look at the masculine energy as the definition of it, the pure definition of the masculine energy is assertive energy. The definition of the feminine energy is compassion, acceptance, assertive. So when we combine both energies within us, we are at the same time being compassionate, accepting, and assertive. Compassionate, accepting, and assertive. Assertive, moving out, finding our place in the world. Compassionate and accepting everything and everyone. It all begins with us first. So when you look at both energies, just the energies of it, and we begin to balance that, it's about really asking the men out there, what's your definition of the feminine energy? What's your definition of the masculine energy? And the women out there as well. What's your definition of the feminine energy? What's your definition of the masculine energy? Some might say feminine energy, weak. Masculine energy, strong. Well, no. That's your wounding. That's your conditioning. So it's about really defining that within us. So now we can all, because I know women who really the most dominant energy within them is this aggressive masculine energy, so they can fit in with the old boy network. And that's how they're loved. So really what it comes down to is love. I am looking to be loved through all of that. So if we can move into the definition energetically of these energies that are now rising, both energies are rising. But when Dawn originally talked about equality in relationship, this is so important to come from a healthy perspective on this. Is really about going within and asking yourself the question, what is my definition of the feminine energy? What is my definition of the masculine energy? Because then when we come back into relationships, male and female, you're coming in from a healthy perspective to make healthy choices, conscious and aware of yourself. Taking all of the wounding and the 3D out of it, like, oh, wow, I want you to stay home with the kids because that's the woman's place. And I'm the one who is going to make the money for this family. All of that tradition is dying. That's the old. So really, I'm looking at it from an energetic standpoint, but also moving within and starting to heal all of that within us so that we become healthy. And we can open up in our heart space to have healthy relationships where there's a balance of the masculine and feminine energy.
Jeff, I love what you shared here. You taking us up a level to what you called 5D. I'm going to take a moment here to bring us back down to reality. Okay. In reality, this was my reality.
I wanted to get the jump, Jay. I wanted to get the jump on Evis before he went.
I don't know. Is that possible, Ev?
He'll take it to 6.
I'm gonna break it down for the average person that may be watching this evening. I was that very strong masculine male. I used my false powers as really leaning heavily into my masculine self to feel better about myself. And where that came from was the programming I got from 0 to 7 years of age. That's where we get our programming. That's where we get the downloads. Subconsciously, that becomes the pathway for how we show up relationally in our life. Yeah. And I remember, by the time I was in my mid-50s, I had really abused my masculine divine, if I may call it that, in this moment, to feel stronger, to feel better about myself. But it was all false. It wasn't true. As I've shared, Ev, the armor for me was suit and tie and polished shoes and power in my position in my career. But inside, I wasn't okay. Inside, I didn't know why I was not at peace. I had no idea. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I've said that before, and I'll say it again. I didn't know what I didn't know. And what I didn't know was that I was showing up the way I was taught to show up as a man, especially a guy growing up in New York, and even playing into that role as that strong masculine New Yorker that left New York early on in my mid-20s or so. But I carried that responsibility of showing up as that strong man, but inside, I was anything but strong. Inside, I wasn't okay. And it wasn't until I really began to really examine my life and my relationships that by the time I was 54 were really in trouble. And I really examined who I was. And I said, I didn't like the man I had become, but I didn't know who I was. And for me, the journey of self-discovery was finally really examining deep inside who I am and how do I want to show up for me and show up in my relationships. And it brought me right to this topic tonight. This topic is really why this show was launched. I launched Real Men, Real Talk to really bring new awareness to men and hope to women that it's possible that we could change in this lifetime. We can pivot. And I say that not because it's theory. I say it because it was my reality. When I pivoted and I met this woman that showed me that I could show up as my authentic self, which meant a balance of both the masculine and the feminine divine within. Know when I need to be that strong masculine partner, but also know when it's okay for me to show my feminine side. I had no idea that my feminine within was basically in the darkness, laying dormant within for decades, never feeling safe to be present. I had no idea how much feminine I was carrying within. And what she created for me, one of you said this early on in tonight's show, was she created that safe space where I began to open up and I began to melt that thick block of ice that was how I was showing up from inside to out. And the tears began to flow, which for me was the metaphor for my soul thawing out. And those tears were me giving myself permission to just be me. The feminine and the masculine, understand that I'm not one or the other. I'm both. We all are both.
Yeah.
And so it's possible that as a man, in my late 50s now, I have finally learned how to live in balance. And I got to tell you guys, I love the feminine side of me. I love being even in a more of a heavier balance on the feminine and the masculine, I got tired of living the masculine. I did that for 54 years, and it was really a wrecking ball for myself and my relationships. And ultimately, what I've learned is that I believe most women want to have a man in balance, a man that's there for them and strong when need to be, but also a man that shows up and is being willing to be vulnerable and willing to shed a tear and willing to just be, and be at peace with who we are. Dawn, I want to take a moment here to ask you, because listening to your bio and reading and learning about you, at a very young age, you were thrust into a very, very strong masculine world in business as a model, eventually becoming a supermodel. Your body and face being on a couple of hundred different magazines and media, and that had to be really difficult. How did you navigate through that wilderness? And it had to be a wild ride to get from there to become this woman, this advocate of empowerment for women and men to feel safe, to begin to basically learn how to live in balance of both the masculine and feminine and be okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, it was very treacherous waters. And especially in the 80s, sexual harassment was alive and well. And in that industry, there was no protections. There were no laws. It was, every, survival of the fittest kind of attitude, because you're on your own kind of thing. And people took advantage of that. And a lot of men took advantage of that. And I saw a lot of pain too, because again, it doesn't, that whole, conquer and, you've got to be dominant and dominate and intimidate, a lot of intimidation. Well, if you don't do this, and if you don't take off your clothes, and it's intimidation and force. And, these men, you just see the pain. It's like, how do you live with yourself? Like, how do you look in the mirror and deal with this, this anger and domination and force on women? It was, and so it was, the 80s were really pretty brutal. 90s got a little bit better. But you asked how I kind of survived it. I think that for me, I did come from a very strong family background. So, I had a boundary that you didn't cross. And I didn't care if you sent me home. I never did another job again. I was working at McDonald's the next day flipping. You don't cross this boundary. And if you do, there's going to be a problem. And so they said, talk about energy. People sense that when you're like, the buck stops here. Like, don't come any closer. Don't touch me, or you're going to get hurt. It's an energy you put out. And I had that energy because I learned, I had 5 brothers. They taught me, this is how you kick. This is how you can take someone down, and you just give them a look. You just give them a look like, do not come near me. And so I learned, and it's unfortunate. Why do I have to be like that? Why would I have to be like that with a man? And so I saw a lot of pain in that industry. Women being extremely insecure about the way that, because it was all about the way you looked. It wasn't about what you thought, how you felt, your opinions. It was always, this is how you look. And, and so it was very superficial. And so I had to navigate at a very young age, 17, 18, 19, traveling all over. I was in Italy. But I think it was a combination of my family background, my faith. I always believed in a higher power. I'm not a religious person, but I always believed in a higher power, angels, guides, always protecting me. I knew one day that I was going to be a mentor and an advocate for women to really understand that they don't have to put up with this. This was something that, we've been programmed into, that we're supposed to be, intimidated and subjugated and repressed and all that. And that's not healthy. That's toxic. So, and that's why I'm a mentor to young models now. I help them. They can write me, ask me questions. I help young women. They don't have to be models, but so I always say I went from a supermodel to a role model.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Love
So
that.
yeah, to really just help women feel more secure with themselves. Our media sold us a bill of goods as well. So not only do we have the his story, as Evan said, but our media keeps perpetuating these myths and that women are really only as good as their youth and their beauty, because God forbid they get older. There's no value anymore. They're not, they're invisible. And women start to feel invisible when they hit around 40. They start to feel invisible because of all the and so what I say is, no, you get more powerful as you get older, because of your wisdom, your experience. You have so much to contribute to life. And what I love about the indigenous cultures, the Aborigine cultures, the American Indian cultures, I've studied, because like I said, I wanted to be a Margaret Mead, and maybe one day I will be a Margaret Mead. But the matriarchy, matrilineal, they look to their elders, wise women, and they asked them for their opinions, and they had counsel, and they said, well, what do you think? And they actually had discussions before they went out and did anything. They actually spoke to their wise women, and where did we lose all that you become older and you don't have any value anymore, especially for men too. They do it to men. Ageism is alive and well. But we're changing all that. And I do believe that it starts with me. As I change and get rid of all that darkness and the programming and all that, as I share, and as I become lighter and I become more of who I am, and love myself unconditionally, I share that light with others. And then it's kind of like it touches them. And then they're like, oh, I'm free to share mine as well. And I'm free to be me. And like you said, just be me. And be my authentic self. And the other thing I wanted to say to Evis, I was watching your walkabout. You had a video on in your walkabout, and I absolutely loved it. I have to tell you, because here you are looking very masculine, your muscles and all that stuff, and pectorals, and, you're doing your walkabout. And, it was beautiful because you were in your heart center and you were talking about like the kingdom, the dome, our crown chakra, our higher consciousness. And it was just so beautiful. And it's like, yes, you can look masculine but you can still have that feminine, heart-centered love and just shine. And it was just beautiful. I have to say, I loved it. I watched every second of it.
Thanks, sister. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to bring up Christian Carabello. Welcome to the show, Christian. So good to see you live with us tonight. Matter of fact, I think tomorrow night I'm having dinner with Christian's daughter and husband in our home. So welcome to the show tonight. She says, are you supposed to have equal parts feminine and masculine, or aren't we just supposed to be loved? How do you change where you were wounded? So it's a two-part question. I'm going to invite one of you men to step in here and bring some clarity to Christian and others that might be thinking the same thing. Is there, what is the balance, and how do you change the balance if you're too heavy in one and not in the other? What does that look like? Ev, you want to jump on that one?
Yeah, brother. I mean, we've talked about it in previous shows. Again, we're talking about this beautiful word that we call the LOV, love. At our deepest core and our actual being, we all know that we are love. But unfortunately, somewhere along the line, many of our perception of love is pain. So we have to really go back to those roots of where that pain came from. And we've only just touched on it tonight, that a lot of that pain stemmed from the conditioning, the programming that we may have witnessed as children. So we need to go to the very core where we hold some of that pain that resonates or is a part of our perception of what love is. So through meditation, through forgiveness journaling, through walkabout like I do out in nature, through your stillness. When you can actually sit with yourself, your inner child, and make conversation, because that inner child never left. I only recently talked to you about one of my experiences when I went for a walk down there in bush, or out in the woods, as you call, on the other side of the pond. And I sat down with myself. I was talking to those three people, the me, myself, and I, the highest version of myself, the adult version of myself, and my inner child. And there was one person that wanted to step in, and that was the ego. So when we become aware that the ego just wanted to keep us in a safe space from all that stuff, that pain we may have really resonated love with from that early childhood, then we can sit and have a conversation with all those aspects within ourselves. That's where we then start to adult and parent our inner child in being able to tell this inner child that it is no longer need to see love as something that is painful, but something that is safe, something that is sacred, something that is precious, and something that we can all work together now in this thing that we call our body to work as the one. So yeah, I'd be definitely going back to that childhood, like we've touched on a little bit with Dawn tonight.
I love that. Beautiful. Abigail says the feelings of invisibility are real with way more women than imagined. I have felt it myself. See, this was a big part of my early awakening. Abigail, I'd love for you to drop in the comments from your perspective, where are you today in your healing journey and your awakening? And do you still feel invisible, or are you lighting up in your own life today? We'd love to hear more about that. As we move on, we're about 20 minutes from the hour, so we still have some time to continue keeping this conversation, this deep conversation on equality in relationships and the balance within ourselves. What I really love, what I'm hearing tonight, is that it really is about awareness. This is really what this conversation is about. Awareness is part of us awakening and beginning to understand that how many of us showed up wasn't because we were bad people, we made bad decisions or choices. It was because we didn't know any different. We didn't know. We had role models and mentors. A dad showed up playing their role. Mom showed up in our families playing their role. And many of us just emulate and mirror what we were taught and learned. And what we're suggesting tonight in 2021, that you become the one. You become that one that says, no mas, no more, not here, not now, not today. No more do I want to just show up and be the person that I was taught to be. I want to show up and be the person that I was born to be. There's a big difference between what we were taught and what we were born to be. And there is nobody other than our own ego, our own thoughts of self-doubt, that will block us from breaking through to break free. And the breaking free brings us to freedom. Josh, Richard, what do you make of all that? What does that mean to you?
There's so much here. And that's what, I can say with 100% certainty, Dawn, that the old me, who wasn't enough just being me, and who had that programming that it was who I was my career, and who I was the sum of my achievements and my bank account. I can say with 100% certainty that had I been married to a successful woman like yourself, that would have threatened a lot of that old story. And I would have not shown up as my best self for myself or someone like a partner like you. And I think that's where a lot of the damage comes from. So to answer the earlier question, what was the damage? In my case, it was the old story of I'm not enough unless I have this, or I've done this, or I do this, and that I wasn't enough in my mind, just being me. And that's been a beautiful awareness and has freed up all of that discomfort, both in myself and in my relationships. So that's what I was brewing on here in the last bit when I was thinking about where my pain came from, where my imbalance lived.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm right with you, Josh, as usual. But
that old "I'm not enough," man.
Jeff. I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. And I'm only here to take care of mom. So it was ingrained that I'm here to take care of my mother. I can go into all of that, and thus that's what I learned growing up. That's what my father said to me the day he died: take care of your mother. So for me, what was ingrained in me was that I'm here as the man, and I need to take care of the woman in my life. So deeply ingrained in me. And then, as Josh said, I would look at my bank account. I would look at all what I have, what I've done, this and all of that, and totally leave out who I am. Because I was so ingrained that I am here to take care of a woman. My father ingrained that in me. I'm here to take care of mom. Mom ingrained that in me based upon my childhood. So all I knew was I have to take care of a woman. And if I can't, why will I be loved? How would I be loved if I can't take care of you? And then going back, wow, I only made this much money. This is how much money in my bank. Wow, you make more than me. How can I take care of you? So then why would you want to be in relationship with me? I don't own a house. Look at my car. I'm an artist. I make this. I don't make as much money as you. Money was a huge, huge, huge thing for me, and has been for a very long time. Because what was ingrained in me was that I am here to take care of you. Where there's no equality in that. There's no health in that. It's not even taking into account the person who I'd want to ask out on a date of how they felt about it. That's how deeply ingrained it was in me, and why it was a challenge for me to be in relationship with women, because it was so deeply ingrained. That has shifted and changed an awful lot in my life, and that's how then I had to begin to deal with that and dispel those myths inside of me, dispel those illusions inside of me, work on that conditioning, work on that wounding, because my model taught me otherwise.
Love that, Jeff. Jeff Asano bringing it home. One more show on Real Men, Real Talk Live this evening with guest Dawn Gallagher. Mary Kelly says, Don, I'm going to ask you your perspective on this comment. Mary says, definitely not your job, fellas. We can take care of ourselves, love us, and respect us.
Yeah.
So here's my question, Don. Coming off of that comment, do you believe that's true?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, you know what? Men have so much pressure on them. I mean, they just have, Jeff, and thank you for sharing that, Jeff. It's really beautiful. Thank you all, by the way, for sharing. Jay, you sharing your story, Josh, Evis, it's really beautiful. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, women we could take care of ourselves. Give us a chance. You know what I mean? If you stop controlling and trying to micromanage us and whatever, give us a chance. We want men to respect us, to love us, to have conversations with us, to show up. you know, and you don't, and Jeff, like you were saying, you know, it's just, it becomes, those programmings became your, almost like your identity. That you felt, you know, lost without that identity until you started working and healing, and realizing that was a myth and it wasn't true, that people could love you no matter what. It doesn't matter just because you exist, just because you were born, you should be loved and cherished. You are sacred. And so, yeah, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah,
but
you did.
yeah.
You know, I want to say, Donna MC, I don't know where you're coming in from. By the way, viewers and guests, drop it in the comments. Love to know what state or country or city you're coming in from. But Donna MC says, this is amazing. I think it starts when boys are born and people call them my little man, which is interesting because I hear more moms calling their sons little men than dads. Just my observation. And she goes on to say, no, they are not little men. They are babies to be loved and cared for. To me, that's part of that 0 to 7 years of age when moms and dads, primarily moms I heard more of, call their sons little men. It puts a tremendous amount of pressure on us as young boys. And I could tell you, as that little man that grew up to be very much a caretaker and very codependent in my relationships, feeling that responsibility, I could tell you that when I broke the chain and I freed myself from those shackles to my ankles, that's when I started to heal. That's when I started to get well. That's when I lost a lot of weight. Like 60 pounds. I didn't lose the weight. Let me back that up. I didn't lose it because I'm not searching for it anymore. I released it. I released it because I no longer had that responsibility of being that big man. I don't have to do that anymore. I just get to show up. And the only way I could show up is I had to be willing to grow up and understand that women want more from their men than just to be the bankroll. There's millions of women that are with men today that make millions of dollars and have those very expensive homes and cars, but they're lonely. They're not attached. They're not connected to their partners. They are attached to them because the men are emotionally detached.
Yeah.
Men, listen to this little secret. You could give that job up. That's not what women want today. They want a man to be present. They want a man to see him. They want a man to feel him. They want a man to understand them. They want a man to love them. They want a man to respect them. They want a man to talk to them with love and kindness and acknowledge them. And so that they know that they do matter and their voice matters equally in a relationship. And when we start to understand that in society, we will become a healthier society. We will see divorce rates drop. We will see suicides drop. We will see drug abuse and alcohol levels drop. Because ultimately, I believe we all want the same thing. It's to love and be loved. We just don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I also think we'll see shootings drop as well, because a lot of shootings come from anger and they're just displaced and confused and yeah.
It's about Jay, you called it.
Go ahead, Josh.
Go ahead, Josh. Yeah,
I was just going to say my lowest point and my near suicide was all about that, failure as a man. And it's because I didn't have the bank account. I lost everything. In fact, I was so negative in crushing debt from investors I couldn't pay back. And a huge part of that was my role taking care of my mom and my sister. And I was like, I've ultimately failed. Now I can't even take care of myself because I'm in this crushing debt. How could I ever fulfill my role and my job? And I am an utter failure to everyone. And the guilt and pressure and shame around that was just gut wrenching. It was impossible to live with daily. And and I was holding on to that story, Jay, that same story that you had. And my sister has told me in the past, and I'm gonna play the other side real quick, because because my sister told me, stop, it's not your job, don't worry about me. And it's real easy for her to say that. And it's really hard for us to let that role go if we don't know anything else, and if we don't know that it's safe to be loved as us, and that we can just be okay being us. It's real hard to, and it took me coming to the edge of that parking garage and walking away to let that, and it took years to let that go afterwards. But that story brought me there, to that concrete railing that I almost jumped over, to stop the shame of that story and being an utter failure to everyone. And my ultimate role, which was I was supposed to be the security for my mom and my sister. And I could see no way out of it. And therefore, why did I need to be here? I was just a burden on everybody at this point. You know, I was causing more pain than I was taking away. And so at that point, why be here? Everyone else would be better off without me here, was my thought.
Josh, Richard, I just want to take a moment to invite you to take a nice deep breath. Because I know when we go back there, in this moment, we're there. And I just want you to know that's not true. That's not who you are, and that's not what your role is. And man, I love you, Josh Richard. You're just an absolutely amazing, beautiful man. And I'm glad that you made the decision to stay, because your work is not done. It's just begun. See, this is an example of how real men can show up today. That I'm comfortable streaming across the world to tell you that I love you. And I'm glad that you're in my life today.
Same. All of you guys, all of you, Dawn as well. And the beautiful lessons we can learn from each other in this beautiful holding space and love for one another. This is the future of human beings. We're all the masculine. We're all the feminine. We are just human beings together, loving.
Josh Carey says, I understand you, Josh. I see you. So here's an example of you are not even in the same state, but through the energy of the fifth dimension, as Jeff mentioned earlier, she sees you in this moment, and we all do. And this is how we can practice showing up differently for one another. I was listening to my arising this morning as I awakened. Mary had one of our mentors pop up on the feed, and he talked about how we break the chain, the shackles, is through repetition, is through practice. To break the relationship to the old programming from 0 to 7 doesn't happen with a light switch. We can't, it's not like we turn it on and turn it off. We have to practice, change thought patterns, change behaviors through repetition. And that's why I created what I refer to as non-negotiables in my own healing journey. And if you've been pretty quiet for a while, I'm going to give you a minute here just to jump in and kind of break down what you've been hearing. And then we're going to go into a segment of our show called Magical Musical Chairs. And I'll give Dawn the breakdown of how that works, the rules of the game. And what do you make of all this, Ed? A lot of love going around here tonight.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And as always, brothers, Josh, that's magic, man. Thank you, my brother, for sharing that part of your story, as always, my brother. And it just, I think what's important, what you're just touching on there, Jay, you're talking about that subconscious programming. I think it's still something that many of us have got to really start to understand on how we can rewrite some of these programs that we've been carrying for so long, because we weren't taught this stuff. Unfortunately, this is not the stuff that you pull up in the textbook.
Mm-mm.
So now that we have this sort of awareness, we've got shows like here on Real Men Real Talk Live. We've got beautiful divine feminine like Dawn doing her work that understand this reprogramming of the subconscious mind. And 3 very valuable things that I always learnt with the subconscious mind and how to reprogram it were, 1, visualization or imagery.
Mm.
Now, you got to think back, if we're living out today like it was our past, and we're carrying a lot of this pain, these deeper emotions that lay and stay dormant within our body, then we need to rewrite some sort of imagery that we can start seeing a picture that we really want to see out here on the real or reality. So that one thing for me is definitely visualization. I do that every night before I go to bed. I go over, and we've talked about this before, I clean the slate of the pictures I've seen through the day. Then I start creating the picture that I want to see tomorrow. So when we get past that visualization, then you just touched on it, Jay, that second thing, how the subconscious program is actually programmed, is repetition. So no different, like I'm out there in nature doing my exercises or whatever we're doing out there for our exercise, we've got to repeat some of these actions, behaviors within our lives to actually get our body to believe us this time. The subconscious mind is your body, my brothers and sisters. If you get a chance, I want you to have a listen to some of the work of Dr. Candace Pert, who talks specifically about how these emotions are driving this body, and the subconscious mind is that of the body. So unfortunately, one of those other things that programs the subconscious mind is through trauma. So where did that trauma come from? Well, we know so much of it's come from those first 7 years of who we were groomed to be, or maybe it's come along the line where we've had abuse or something along those lines. So through particular things like meditation, through some of these binaural beats, some different waveforms of audio, that you can start triggering brainwave patterns to get in more to a theta brainwave state where you can start rewriting the story that you want to see out on the real.
Beautiful. Love it, Evis. Thank you. Thank you. So this is a time as we kind of take a moment just to process what Ev just shared, which is pretty powerful. A lot of times I suggest I watch the replay so I could hear the show a second time, because there's so many nuggets and liquid gold in that's dropped down in conversation in the show. So if you lose some, pick it up on a replay. This is the time in the show. It's called Magical Musical Chairs. This is where I move you guys around, and when you're right next to me, that means you're up. You have 2 minutes to answer a question that I'm going to put out in the universe to you directly. And I was just thinking about it. You know, I love how when we first came into the show tonight, Dawn, I believe you were to my far right, and it didn't feel energetically that's where you were supposed to be. And so I moved you to the middle. And as I'm sitting here listening to Ev, I'm looking at the screen at the monitor, and it's just, tonight's show is just in balance. This is what life is about. This is really what this topic is about. It's not, are we too heavy and masculine versus feminine? It's about really just being aware of where you're at when you feel safe to be able to express in a loving, kind way that part of you that's coming forward. And just through awareness and being consciously living and making healthy choices in the words we speak to one another, we will learn what we're comfortable with. And if there's parts that we're not happy with and we want to expand more of our feminine or more of our masculine, we can. There's nothing preventing us from doing that. It's just our own restraints that are blocking us from experimenting a little bit. Have some fun with life. You know, give yourself permission to explore. Give yourself permission to play. Give yourself permission to just be and see how it feels in that moment. And so with musical chairs tonight, Josh, I'm going to welcome you back to the United States after being overseas for a number of months. Welcome back to Magical Chairs in the U.S. And so here's your question, Josh.
Uh-oh.
How can we have a balance of the feminine and masculine energies when most of us have one stronger than the other?
How can we have balance?
When we know that we're weighted more heavily in the more than the other.
Yeah, it's interesting when we awaken to friction, pressure. When we start to acknowledge that things may not be working as well as we thought they were, and we start to use curiosity to examine some of that friction or that pressure. Through that curiosity, we could say, what's not working and why? And what we can do is ask, is this the status quo? Is the norm working anymore? And if it's not, and you're able to examine and find an old story that isn't serving your highest good or the highest good of your relationships anymore. And we talked about it a little bit tonight on how, on those patterns. Ev and Jay are talking about patterns, and I guess what I wanted to speak to is when we discover something, the question is, how do we undo that? How do we untangle that old story from us? It isn't us. It's just a belief or something that's been placed on us or passed down to us. It's not us. So how do we untangle that? And we touched on it lately, was that it's not a light switch and it's not magical. It's sort of, I see it as this, or I'll draw it this way for you, is this linear line, right? And the event that makes us unhappy, we sort of come along, we pass it, and then we go, oh wait, that was that thing again. I noticed that isn't so healthy. And then we go through our life again, and then, we come along again, we pass through, and we realize it a little bit closer to the event each time, and closer and closer. And then what happens is you realize it in the moment when it's happening. And that was, I realized this in my life. I'd be like exploding and reacting and go, hey, this is that moment that isn't so healthy. And what happens is then you start coming along, and then you realize it when it's about to happen. And again, this is just through being aware of ourselves, and we're going through life. And then what's going to happen is you're going to realize that, whoa, this is the lead up to that moment. And that's when we can start to alter that path and choose a different way. We're not going to run through the old pattern the way we have before. And so, yes, some of these old unhealthy, crusty beliefs can be changed. And it's not overnight, and it's through awareness, and it's through loving kindness. We don't place judgment, or we don't say, oh, this is that moment that I'm wrong or I'm bad, or there's no judgment in this work. It's loving kindness and saying, this is that moment that I'd like to change. And if you realize it after, that's great. Next time you'll realize it a little bit closer, and then in the moment, and then all of a sudden you're going to start to see it before. And that's when change happens. We can choose a new path, and then that pattern's not going to run. And you're training your brain as well. It's the brain patterns are like water through the Grand Canyon. It's run that way a long time, and it's carved a deep channel in the earth. And we have to choose a new path for that water. And we do have to carve it down. And thank goodness it doesn't take 40 some years to carve a new channel. It can actually happen over a month. But it takes that conscious effort of catching it in the moment and choosing anew. And it's okay to see it after, and don't judge. And it's beautiful, healthy work, and you can change.
Beautiful. Love that. Josh, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, Josh. Jeff Asano, I'm going to invite you I'm going to give you 2 minutes. The cue for all of you is when I drop you out of the solo screen to wrap it up, because we are over time this evening. I lost track of time because I was in the moment. And I didn't have an alarm set. I really stopped setting alarms when I stepped out of corporate America, because I no longer want to live in a fire drill. I just want to live and be. So Jeff Fasano, here's your question that's coming from within in this moment. You clearly shared your part of your life experience of having to navigate through the waters, navigate through those fast moving waters of all of those programming, the subconscious programming that you inherited from your upbringing. Where are you at in breaking the shackles, the chain to that inner bondage of showing up the way you were programmed to show up in your relationships? Where are you at in that process? And what are you doing differently today to be free?
The broad answer to that question is we all need to learn how to be who we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple.
Mm-hmm.
We all need to learn how to love, honor, and value ourselves, where we are in our life, and who we are. We all have to get to know who we are. And it's been a process for me to really, really move in and to be me, to love me. It all starts here. It's not about being loved from outside of ourselves. We've talked about that a million times on this show, and many people know it. So it's not so much about where I'm in the process in relationship with women or in relationships. It's about where am I in the process of loving, honoring, and valuing and being me.
Mm.
And that's where I'm at right now. More and more each day, I can look myself in the mirror and say, I love you. I care about you. I honor you.
Mm.
There are ways in which I do that each and every single day. I look at what I have accomplished in my life through my passion of photography, what the people that I've met, the relationships that I have with men and women that are in equal balance. It's a constant thing for me each and every day. It's a constant challenge for me each and every day to love myself, to be who I am, and to know that I am loved, not can be loved. I am loved for who I am. Not how much money I make, not if I can take care of you, not the car I drive, the house I own. I've never owned a house. Probably I'll never own a house.
Mm.
But I have had to work on myself and really go deep within. And I'm telling you, as Evis would say, deep within, begin to honor, value, and love me so I can be me.
Mm.
That's where it starts. That's where the health begins. If we can show up healthy in being who we are, loving, honoring, and valuing ourselves, then we will connect energetically with someone else who is doing the same exact thing. Then together we can form a healthy relationship with open communication, because we dig who we are. Where I'm doing much better than I was yesterday. I'm doing much better than I was the day before. I'm doing much better than was a month before and 6 months before, on that place of being, honoring, and valuing, and fully being who I am.
Love it, brother. Love it.
Jeff, how does it feel to hear those words come through your voice?
Feels freaking great.
Yeah.
Believe me. I'm telling you, I beat the crap out of myself for years. I beat the crap out of myself for years because I didn't measure up to somebody else. I didn't measure up to this. I didn't look as good. I wasn't as handsome. I wasn't this. I was not. As Josh we always would talk about, that chatter in our heads. Chatter in our heads. You're not good enough.
Beautiful. Love that. Jeff, thank you so much for showing up tonight as you always do. Raw, authentic, vulnerable, honest, and with love. I want to acknowledge Katrina May coming in from Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Welcome to the show this evening, Katrina. We love you, girl. She says, I have to remind myself all the time, do I know you? Yes. I've been waiting my whole life to know you. But I was always right there in front of myself, already the person I was looking for. Wow. That's amazing right there. That's just is absolutely a beautiful awareness on Katrina's part. Thank you for sharing that, Katrina May. I'm going to invite Dawn Gallagher to jump into the middle seat again. This is your time. This is a hot seat for you right now, but it feels like calm because you spent most of tonight's show in that spot. Dawn, this question is for you. And before we go there, I just want to take a moment to thank you and honor you and respect you for having the courage to step into the show, into this panel with us four men tonight. And thank you for showing up right on time. Truly. Dawn, your question is, how can women help men bring out their feminine energy?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for inviting me on this show. It's been such an honor, and I loved hearing all your stories and, things that you've been through, and just feeling your heart so much. And, I want you to know, that you are, so I believe that, and you guys all know this as well, that we are spiritual beings living a human experience. And, so the question was, how can women help men cultivate more of their feminine side? Was that the question?
Yes.
So I just think through, letting them be more vulnerable, listening to them. Men are so nervous and worried about being vulnerable. I think that if you give them that safe space, I just think that men are just so incredible once they start to really find their authentic voice and start shedding all the shackles that Evis keeps talking about. They just want to, and us women, we're so lucky when men, they just want to honor us and love us and respect us. So we just want to give them that safe space to say, you're safe no matter what you do, no matter, there's no paycheck there. It doesn't matter what car you drive, what house. We love you and honor you no matter what. We respect you, and you can be vulnerable with us, because the vulnerable side, I think, is considered more feminine, and men are not taught or raised to be vulnerable. Men, the old paradigm is you can't cry. That's being a girl. All that stuff, which is so false. And so it puts a wall around them. And so I think with women, the best way that I would say is give them that vulnerable space and make them feel safe in sharing their vulnerability and honor them.
Beautiful, sister.
Dawn, as a special guest, I have a surprise for you. I have a second question. And it's you could take a nice deep breath because it's an easy one, I'm sure, for you to answer. What has this experience been for you like this evening to step in to Real Men Real Talk Live? What has it been for you? How has it been for you? And what's your takeaway? What are you taking away that you didn't know going in?
Well, I'm really blown away by all of your authentic voices, your stories. I felt every one of your hearts. And, it was just a beautiful experience. I hope you invite me again. I just I love being on this show, having real talk and being able to be authentic, that we're in a safe space, that we can really share our vulnerability and know that we still, are held in a sacred space right here, and that we're all allowing that. I mean, it's been a great experience. So I want to really thank you all. I am deeply touched, deeply touched to be on this show and sharing this with you, and you also honoring me and actually giving me a voice to share the women's viewpoints and the women's side of the story, and how we so want to be loved with you, and we so want to, we're all sacred. We all, are divine. We're God. We're in the image of God, and I think we forget that. And thank you so much. I'm very, very honored to be here.
Beautiful, sister.
I got you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, sister.
Ev, this is your time to shine, as you always do, not with pressure, but just with wisdom spoken. Ev, as Dawn said earlier in tonight's show, she observed watching you in the walkabout, in your promos. And it seems like such a conflict, because how you look physically, but the words you speak through your mouth, almost they seem like there's conflict there, because they're not aligned. On one hand, you look very, very, very masculine, very, very strong. Yet when you speak from your heart. What did you have to do to get there? And how do you balance the two? In any given moment of every given day, you're blessed with life.
Beautiful question, brother. Deep. But yeah, I just want to start off thanking our sister, beautiful Divine Feminine, for dropping in at Real Men Will Talk Live tonight. And as always, my brothers and my sisters, from the bottom of my heart, here in the land down under, thank you with gratitude and much love. And such a beautiful question, Jay, because we've touched on it again tonight, and you asked me, how do I find that balance? It's very simple. I come from the heart. I come from the heart space, but how do I balance both of that logic, masculine mind, coming from the brain, coming from the mind space? How do I balance the masculine within inside of me with that beautiful sacred feminine? I stay grounded, my brothers and sisters. That's why I'm out in nature. I've always asked my brothers and sisters, how are you mothering your nature? Are you still distracted by the outside world? Are you still distracted by your past? Or you're building up the anxiety about your future? See, one of the things for me, and I probably didn't have the best role models growing up as a kid. So everything that you see from me now, this person, this being, is all self-taught. But the very beautiful thing that I used to teach myself, other than being out there in nature and staying grounded, was my own life. So I want to ask you, my brothers and sisters, on this beautiful long weekend that we call the East Star, are you living a life or a lie? Because if you feel you're living the lie, then like my brother Jay the Rothman says, it's time to walk your truth. You guys over there, you're on your Good Friday. You're experiencing the fall. So when we come in here to the land down under tomorrow on our Sun's Day, we experience the rise of the Christ or the Christos. Each and all of us have the fall and the rise, and the potential to each all fall to rise to form that Christ-like or light consciousness within us all. And that is through the balance of the beautiful divine feminine and the sacred masculine. So if you've got so much wounding, You've been carrying it like a bag and all this emotional baggage along your life right now. It's time to let go of the blame. It's time to give yourself some forgiveness. Get that forgiveness journal that I talked about. Write down. You writing yourself a letter. Write the little young child a letter. And you may have to do it in a spiritual, as I call them, and burn those words. Burn it up into the ether and start really becoming the one that you want in 2021. Because as we've experienced here tonight with our beautiful divine feminine and having these particular talks that we are on at Real Men Real Talk Live, there's no magic formula. It's doing what we do every day. And like I said, just living that truth. Mm-hmm. So that's how I became that, Jay, and really finding that balance and staying in the grounding.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Dawn, I've been running across the lower banner, the ticker of our show this evening. If our viewers are interested to learn more about you and about your programs and the work you're doing, they in fact have a direct access to you at www.dawngallagher.com. Is that right?
That's right. And you can follow me on Instagram. It's Dawn L. Gallagher. So I hope, anybody that's listening will follow me on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram. And Facebook, Dawn Gallagher. I'm very social. I'm like a little social butterfly. I will engage with everybody. So, And my website is dawngallagher.com.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm going to put some closing words. I'm going to do my best to keep it as brief as I can. I'm actually just scrolling to find a comment that was shared by one of our male viewers this evening. I misplaced it, but Robert Brooker basically shared that these days he's at peace. I'm paraphrasing you, Robert, so please allow me to have this moment. To paraphrase what you shared is that in this moment, he has tears of gratitude and he finds these opportunities more and more each week. And I just want to take a moment to honor you, Robert Brooker, for showing up, not just here on Real Men Real Talk Live, but giving yourself permission to show up in your own life. You see, that's simple, not easy. Because ultimately, that's what we all are wanting to do. We want to feel good. We want to not only feel good, but be good. We want to be loved. We want to be acknowledged. We want to be seen. And somewhere along the line, we take a wrong turn, many of us. We take a turn down a very dark lane. Perhaps we lose a headlight or two. And years, weeks, months, decades pass, and we are searching and seeking for our answers for the light. And we have no idea where to find it or how to find it. And so we choose alternative choices. We numb out through food, through smokes, through weed, through alcohol, through drugs, through sex, through retail therapy, through gambling. We have wreckage along the way, relationships blown up, pain. And in the end, all we have ever been searching for is within us, the balance of our true, authentic self. That is our heart, our soul space. And so knowing that and having that awareness, we don't have to seek it out anymore. We don't have to search for it. All we have to do is be willing to come home to ourselves, love ourselves, learn how to take care of ourselves, honor ourselves. And when we do that, we will experience what true freedom can feel like without the bondage without those 3D programming that we've been holding on to as though that's where all our answers lie. Jeff Fasano said it so beautifully this evening, as did Ev, Josh, and Dawn. I know it's possible because I was once that man, and I choose to no longer live and show up that way for myself and for others. The first step, as I shared last week, was surrender. The second step was having the courage to step in by stepping out of the matrix or the 3D living. Begin to trust myself, begin to like myself, and eventually fall in love with me. I invite you viewers to begin your process if you haven't yet. Self-care is the gateway. Stepping into nature, as both Dawn and Ev and I have shared many times, for me was the gateway to coming home. Step in by stepping out into nature. And that's where all your answers are. That's where all your wisdom is. It's right there. Just step in. And with that, I want to thank our beautiful, amazing, awakened guest, Dawn Gallagher, for joining us this evening on Real Men, Real Talk Live. I love you guys. Thank you, viewers. If you heard something that you liked or love, please share it out in your own community on Facebook, on YouTube. If you're coming in watching us on YouTube, you're part of the family. Please share it out with your friends and loved ones. Next week, we'll be on at the same time on Real Men, Real Talk Live. I love you guys. We'll catch you next week. For now, peace and blessings.